Welcome, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Turning Sales Leads into Fixed Ops Customers. My name is Eliana Raggio, and I'll be your moderator today. And today's webinar is being presented by DealerOn. And for anyone who isn't familiar with DealerOn, well, we're an award-winning website development company and digital agency best known for our search engine optimization, best-in-class customer service, and our award-winning websites. DealerOn was named the top-rated website provider by Driving Sales in 2012, and DealerOn customers were winners of the Spring and Fall 2012 Digital Dealer Website Excellence Awards, including the highly coveted overall winner. DealerOn is so committed to lead conversion, optimization, and customer service that we're the only company in the industry to offer a money-back lead guarantee program. You heard me right. I said a money-back lead guarantee program. So if your website company isn't guaranteeing you leads, well then maybe you should check us out at dealeron.com. And we have a great show in store for you today. We're very pleased to have Ray Fenster as our presenter today. Ray Fenster is the president and CEO of rayfenster.com, a social business firm specializing in automotive, healthcare, real estate, and government markets. Ray has spent most of his working life in the digital space with specific expertise in several e-commerce verticals for product development, research, sales, and service operations, working with large data sets. As a digital director and executive, Ray pioneered cutting-edge applications for vendors and OEMs, such as Reynolds, ADP, Dealerskins, Blackbook, Carfax, eBay, Alltech, AutoBytel, Ford, Lexus, Saturn, and more. Ray was one of the first digital professionals that moved e-commerce and the use of data into service operations and inbound and outbound marketing and advertising, including social media management systems. Ray continues to coach personnel and has provided training to many of the top internet managers in the country. Ray is a regular contributor to several publications. He's presented at numerous popular workshops, forums, and conventions, and he can be reached at Ray Fenster at rayfenster.com. Now, during the presentation, if you have any questions, please use the question feature located on the corner of your screen to submit them. At the end of the presentation, we'll answer those questions of general interest. If we're unable to get to your question live, don't worry, we're going to respond by email later today. Also, don't forget, a link to download a copy of today's webinar recording is also going to be emailed to you later today for your reference. And please feel free to share it with friends and colleagues. And hey, DealerOn is going to be at the upcoming NADA convention in Orlando. So if you're going to be there, well, we want to see you. So come visit us at booth 3259. That's booth 3259. I'm going to be there, and I love meeting people. So please come and see us. It's February 8th through the 11th in Orlando this year, and it is going to be a great conference, I'm sure. Also, while you're there, check out the speaking sessions from Jeff Clark. He's the Executive Vice President of Business Development here at DealerOn, and he's going to be talking about digital strategies to double your fixed operations profits. Oh, Jeff is a fantastic speaker, so you've definitely got to go check him out. All the information is right there for you, so hopefully we'll see you in Orlando. And guess what? Our great friends at rayfenster.com are offering up a fantastic prize today for one lucky attendee. What is it? Well, rayfenster.com is going to be giving one person today mystery shopping services for both sales and service. Oh, and this is valued at $1,500. This includes a professional mystery shop of your dealership and an evaluation of your emails and voicemails. And then Ray Fenster is going to give you full access to the results so you can gain awareness and implement changes based on those experiences. You have to be here during the live broadcast to win it, so good luck. Also, at the conclusion of the webinar, you're going to receive a short survey. Please fill it out because we're always looking for great feedback from our audience. And today we're going to randomly select some winners from all the completed surveys to also win some Google prizes. So let's get started. Let's learn how to turn those sales leads into fixed ops customers. Ray Fenster, how are you, my friend?
I am ready to go.
I bet you are. So Ray, last time I saw you was at the Digital Dealer Convention, and when we talked about doing this webinar, you instantly knew what dealers needed to know. You know that dealers out there need to know how to turn their sales leads into fixed ops customers. So this was an easy subject matter for you to come up with. So, before we get started, And I love how you say you can dot the I in internet, now learn how to cross the T's to maximize profits. What are we going to be learning today?
Well, we're going to go over three major objectives, okay? And these terms are used like theology. A lot of people talk about it being philosophy or strategy, but I found going through dealerships, I use theology because you really have to believe in what you're doing. We're going to talk about some tactics. How do you go about doing things? How do you set it up? Looking at it more of a short-term type of approach. And then we're going to talk about techniques. What kind of day-to-day things you need to do to make things happen right. And then, of course, we're going to have a question and answer session. And anytime during this presentation that you have a question, please use the chat feature, and Ileana will get back to us and pop that question in at any time so we can answer you. Now, when I talk about theology, first of all, before I say that, thank everyone for coming. The topic is not something that everyone really goes to, and it's really the state of the art when you're talking about doing a dealership. Doing deals and handling things from the front to the back is a major obstacle for many dealerships, and hopefully I can give you some theories and some ways to proceed in making it happen. And one of the things you have to do is you have to really believe that this is the way to go. And I call it really the all-hands-on-line philosophy, because everyone in a dealership touches that customer. And in order to touch the customer, you have to have a great deal of trust amongst all of your members, your staff members, or whatnot. And I know that's kind of a difficult thing since we're all kind of competing, but it is imperative that you're being able to rely on others to make this happen. Let me go back. Let's ask a poll. Let's do a polling real quick there, Ileana.
I think that's a great idea, Ray. Okay, everyone, we want to know what you think. So if you could, check out your computer screens and check out this poll question. We want to know, what do you think is the average national closing ratio for new car sales leads? It's a tricky one. What do you think is the average national closing ratio for new car sales leads? Do you think it's 8 to 12%? 12 to 18%? Is it 18 to 25%? Or is it 25 to 30%? Now, we're not talking about what you're doing at your dealership. We're talking about, what do you think is the national average closing ratio for new car sales leads? Once we have a majority of the votes, we're going to close the poll and share the results. We have a lot of different answers coming in. Okay, and you know what? We do have a majority of the votes, so thank you so much for participating in our poll question today. Ray, are you ready to see what the audience has responded?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, let's see.
Let's see. Okay, hold on. Let me close the poll, and I'm going to share the results. So, I want you to know, my very, very smart audience out there says 82% of today's audience say it's 8 to 12%. And we have an even 6%, 6%, 6% with all the votes for all the rest of them, 12 to 18, 18 to 25, and 25 to 30. But 82% say it's 8 to 12%. What's the right answer, Ray?
We have a smart audience. We have a very smart audience. And some of those others might have thought about their own, but that is the correct answer. No question about it.
Ah, fantastic. I knew my audience was smart. They always are. Wait till we get to the question and answer session. Ooh, okay. They're going to throw some good ones at you. Okay, well, while we're at it, audience, we'd like to ask you a second poll question. You're not done the heavy lifting yet. So check out your screen and look at this poll question. What do you think is the national average closing ratio for service customers who buy cars from that same dealership? So, please select one of the following. Is it 35 to 45%, 45 to 55%, 55 to 65%, 65 to 75%, or 75 to 85%? And Ray, just so we can clarify, you're asking how many people buy cars from the same dealership where they get their cars serviced. Is that right?
Exactly, as a national average, correct.
What's the national average? So once we get a majority of the votes, we're going to close the poll and share the results. And I can tell you by seeing the votes coming in already, it is all over the board. So while the last poll question, everyone was a little bit certain that it was, answer number one, this one, I think people are maybe, thinking about this one. So what's the national average of closing ratio for people who get their car serviced at a dealership, actually go out and buy a car from that same dealership? And we are almost, let's close the poll. We'll share the results. Ray, are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
You are? Okay, here we go.
I'm ready.
Close this poll, share the results. Well, looky. We got 28% of today's audience think it's 35 to 45%. 28% of today's audience also think it could be 55 to 65%. We have 17% of today's audience who think it could be 45 to 55%. 17% of today's audience think it could be 65 to 75%. And a very sliver of our population today online thinks that it's only 11% of today's audience think it's 75 to 85%. That's really high, though. So only 11% think that. So, Ray, what's the right answer?
I'm not surprised because most individuals really don't have an idea on this number. And this number is not really talked about a lot, but it's the reason that we're having this webinar today. Because that 11% that picked the 75 to 85% are right on the money.
What?
And
wait.
That is right on the money.
That's really high. So you mean to tell me if you have service customers, when they're ready to buy a car, 75 to 85% of your service customers are going to buy from your dealership?
Exactly. Exactly. And now this gives you some ammunition also to talk to your dealer principal, your general manager, and other people to get the buy-in for the all hands on line and to move leads from the sales to the fixed ops. The numbers are staggering and it's consistent. So a new car lead or a used car lead that comes into a dealership, the average is only somewhere between 8 to 12%. Now some dealerships might be a little bit better and maybe do some 10 to 15%, but rarely do you see someone over that number of 15%. But when you come and you're looking at a national average for people that are servicing their car at your dealership that actually buy from the dealership, you're talking about a national average of 75 to 85%. Now different dealerships have different absorption rates in their service departments and different satisfaction rates in the service department, so some of them even have a higher rate. That's why you're seeing some products today that are out there in the marketplace that are actually going after the service customer just going directly after the service customer. This is a way, what we're talking about, to capture all of your customers and to really make your leads and your dollars stretch so you can make the most amount of money. So if you have a lead that comes in that literally is not likely to buy a car, 8 to 12% is not the majority, wouldn't you want to get that customer involved in the service department? And I think this is where you can lock in your dealer principal, because that's one of the issues that most internet managers, sales managers, people that work on the e-commerce digital side have a difficult time doing, is convincing the dealer principal. But these numbers should convince them. And by the way, these are NADA numbers. So these are not numbers that are just pulled out of the air. These are the numbers that have been surveyed over the last 20 years.
Wow.
Now, yeah, that's pretty amazing, isn't it?
And from what I understand, also, the service department makes a lot of money. I mean, they make a lot of profit, right?
Absolutely. In fact, when we used to talk about the front end feeding the back end, and then we turned around and had to understand that the back end was feeding the front end. And the reason that is because most of the profit today is given away in the sales side of things. We work awful hard on the sales side to keep as much gross as we possibly can, but because of all the competition and the manufacturers pushing to get so many cars out, it's tough for the sales side to actually make a good gross profit on the front end. But on the service side makes a great profit. In fact, if you look at the numbers, about 35 to 50% of the overall gross profit comes from the service side. So if we can help the service side increase their numbers, you can see how the profit continues to grow on the service side, because it's very difficult to do it on the sales side. When I talk about toe, I put a musical script up there so you can look. Notes are all over the place, and that's what has to happen. Everybody in the dealership has to be involved. If a car is delivered by a porter that hears a customer say, hey, listen, you know what, this car just got a scratch here. We won't say anything because, you know, we don't think the guy's really going to do anything. If that porter was part of the system, he could tell the sales rep or he could tell the management something, and he could jump and get ahead of things. This would also help your reputation management. So everybody in the whole dealership, look at this list. We're talking about everyone in the dealership, everyone from the top all the way to the bottom, or actually the bottom up, has to be involved in it. So I call it toe, because if the toe is working, the head's working. Now, one of the key things about having a philosophy or a theology in today's marketplace is transparency. And the transparency means that you have to be open about your pricing, about who's going to do the deal, what's part of the deal. And it has to be not only outside, and everyone talks about having to have transparency to the customer. Well, the transparency also has to be within the dealership too. So everyone's on the same page, so everyone can see what everyone is doing. And to mislead or to hide something, both from your staff or from the consumer or the prospect, is a real mistake today. And you're going to hear the word transparency over and over and over in the next 12 to 18 months by just about every vendor that's out there, and most likely every trainer that's out there. Now, tactics. Now, tactics are like a game of chess. You know, you have to know how to move and how to get things running so it's moving smooth. But each organization has a different structure. Some have a vertical type of a structure where the general manager dictates everything. Some have a horizontal structure where the sales and the service kind of flow evenly back and forth and happen to can make decisions on their own. Well, each organization has to adopt and memorialize your process. That process has to be able to be flow from the top all the way to the bottom, or from the side left to the right. Either way you go, it has to move almost like a dynamic flow, okay? It's not a stagnant type of a system. It has to be constantly moving. And so you have to adopt your structure. And obviously, when you're adopting your process, you have to have the buy-in from the top also, and everyone on down below. Everyone has to have a buy-in for this to work. Obviously, a team approach. And we know in sports, when we look at sports, if you look at, and Washington Redskins are a great example. You know, we have a great quarterback now. He gets hurt, and what happens? The team doesn't win. So you really need the depth of an organization to make things happen. Okay, you have to have everybody that pulls together and works as a team. That's the only way this process works, and it's the only way that you can maximize that lead and make sure that that lead moves where it has to go, that prospect moves. By the way, it's not only a prospect, it's a customer too. So if a customer is on the sales side, that customer has to be moved all the way to the service side. And we talk about that all the time in sales, how you have to introduce the new customer that just bought a car to the sales department. Well, it needs to be more proactive. We need to be really assertive to make sure that customer feels like he's a part of the team. So it's not only the staff that's a part of the team, but their customers. So they feel comfortable talking to whoever and making comments, and we can get that information flowing. Training. Who doesn't believe in training and coaching? I mean, now there's a difference though here, because I am suggesting that everyone in the organization have access to the CRM. Now, this is very controversial. Not many dealerships do it. It's only the top 5% of dealerships in the country that do it. But that should tell you something. If the top 5% of the country do it, why aren't you doing it? I mean, do you ever wonder why some dealerships, no matter what the economy is, up or down, or how sales are bad, or how many recalls there are, certain dealerships are always on top? Well, they believe in the old all-hands-on-line philosophy, and they train and they coach so everybody is on the CRM. And so that porter could jump over to the system and drop and put a note into the CRM. Now you say, well, a porter, you know, what's he know? I'll bet you every porter out there today has a smartphone. I mean, the technology today is so easy to use. There's no reason why we can't get everyone involved into the system. And so I really think that if you're smart, you're going to have everyone into your CRM system. Now, they don't have to have all the permissions of a manager. They might just have the lowest set of permissions, but they need to be able to put information into the system so you can track what's going on. And the training, you know, if you have a coach comes in, or if you're looking at your CRM system, I can tell you there's not a CRM system out there today. And I've known and I've gone through just about every one that's out there. But I always learn something new every time I listen to a training on a CRM. And so you got to continually work at learning more and more, because they're getting very complex. And you're going to hear not too far down the road, I think at the next digital dealer, you're going to hear about predictive modeling. And if you probably heard about lead scoring, it's going to move even further beyond that. So Chip Perry, the president and CEO of Auto Trader, says you have to put your hook out there where the fish are. Well, you're going to learn by training and coaching that these systems are going to be able to, you're going to be able to put the hook where the fish are going to be coming to. Okay, so coaching and training on the CRM systems as they change over the next 12 to 18 months, and they will over the next 12 to 18 months, getting more predictive modeling for sales and marketing and service. You're going to need to be constantly looking at coaching and getting some training. Don't be afraid to call your vendor and ask for some help. Now, the only way really that I have ever found that in a dealership that it makes good financial sense for someone in the sales department to work with someone in the fixed ops department, or someone in the fixed ops department to work with the sales department, there really has to be some gold in there somewhere. There has to be a philosophy to actually share some of that wealth that's going to take place. Because we know if we're taking a sales lead, if we make the sale, we're going to get a commission. Yeah, it might even be the minute, but at least we know we're going to get something. But if that customer that you worked for 90 days or 180 days and they're not buying the car, but they decide you get them to service their car over there, there has to be some reward for you to move that to the service side. So here is one of the ways to motivate you and ask your management. I mean, wouldn't they give 10% of the net profit to you if you move a customer from the sales side to the fixed ops, and vice versa? I don't think there's really a dealer principal out there that wouldn't do that if you can show them the numbers really increase. And when we're talking about transferring leads, it's imperative that people are on the CRM system. And when you're transferring a lead from one to another, doesn't mean that you're going to threaten someone or you're going to push them to go over to the other side. You have to build in systems in your CRM that are templates that actually introduce your service customer, your sales customer to service right at the beginning. There's no reason not to have more than one person working on a lead. I showed you the numbers, 8 to 12% or 75 to 85%. So if you get a customer into the service department, where they're going to make money on them, the chances of them buying a car, if you keep in touch with them, are 75 to 85%, and then you're going to get additional commission from that. So transferring that over makes a lot of sense. So when you get a sales lead come in, tell your go over to your service department and say, hey, listen, I have a customer that literally is not going to buy right now, but he has this 1996 Saturn station wagon, and he's milking it along. He needs some service. Can you give him something free? Can we do something for him? I don't think there's a service department in this country that wouldn't at least provide them a free inspection, tell them what they can do to their vehicle to make it worth more money, so if they trade it in, it'd be worth more money. Maybe even give them a car wash, and maybe those that are bright in the service department will say, we'll give them a free oil change. It makes sense to give a free oil change if you pull a customer into service now, doesn't it? Because that customer, you take care of him, is going to buy a car. So you don't be afraid to transfer and to work with the different departments and develop systems and processes that allow you to offer your sales customer a service deal right from the beginning. And put those templates in, to introduce. It could be a non-threatening thing. Hey, come in for a free inspection. You know, no obligation. You can put that right up front. No obligation. You want to see what your car is worth? Hey, our used car manager will tell you, and then you can leave. There's no pressure whatsoever. Get them involved. Now we're going to talk about a little bit about techniques. Okay, how do you make that vehicle go into the dealership and then come out and you're a winning deal? Okay, and what's true here is important to understand, and that is if you're good at working a sales lead, you provide it, or a service lead, and you answer them quickly, and you give them transparent, good information, you're good to great. But if you want to get to excellent, you have to move to that next step. You have to understand the customer cycle. You have to have proper engagement, and you have to fulfill their total vehicle needs, not just selling them a car or not just giving them an oil change. Remember, they've been with that vehicle. They might be telling you how bad it is, but they've had that vehicle on average for over 10 years on average. Okay, so they have to have some memories with that vehicle. Pull out some of those memories from that vehicle. Get some engagement of the customer and move from that good to great to excellent. And it will change your whole way of sales and service. Timing. You know, I know dealerships that literally get a sales lead, and within 4 days, if that customer doesn't buy a car, they say, okay, we're done with the lead. We're just going to put it as a bad lead. And believe me, there are dealership groups that have that philosophy. And to me, they're missing a big boat, because when we look at the cross sales for those customers buy. You know, the majority of customers that come to your website will buy within 30 days. Those that come to the OEM may buy within 90 days, okay? But to just throw away a lead doesn't make sense. So your timing has to be right. So my philosophy is that you have to continue to work a customer hard for the first 7 to 14 days, and then back off a little bit, but continue to work to the customer all the way through the whole process. And you'll find that the more time you spend with good engagement, both on the sales side and the fixed ops side, okay, the more money you're going to make. Time equates to money. One of the most precious, probably the most precious item that customers tell us is their time. So you give of your time, they're appreciating that time, and try to make it effective use of the time too for those customers. Now, when you're doing all this, you got to track, and there's 4 steps you got to do. you got to decide on what metrics are important to your team and management. And you've got to get buy-in that these are the metrics we're going to use. Then you've got to start collecting that information. And remember now, because most dealerships, 95% of most dealerships don't track when a sales lead turns into a service customer. So now you have to do a little bit more tracking, a little bit more work, okay, but you're going to, remember you got some tariffs, so you're going to get some money for your efforts. You got to track both the sales, what happens to the lead through the sales process and through the service process. So now it's imperative, now you can see why the CRM is imperative that both sales and fixed ops are in the system. Now you maintain the data and you collect it over a period of time, longer than a month, preferably more than a quarter. And then you view your results and you make your changes that you need to tweak to make things a little bit better. Now, you can use a piece of paper. You don't have to have a complex system of tracking data. I've seen all kinds of, from all these consultants, all kinds of different systems to use and whatnot to track whatever. You can use simple pencil and paper or a spreadsheet, simple things just to track. Once you know what metrics you have, just keep tracking them. And then, by all means, it's unfortunate in our industry that we look at the month. You know, 0 to 0, you guys have heard of that, I'm sure. We look at it 30 days. But to really understand what's taking place and to make the appropriate adjustments both to people, to money, and to the process, you have to look at it with a longer term. So if your manager comes to you and says, okay, how we do this month, you could say, this month we improved 20% over last month and 30% over the month before. And have those numbers in the top of your head, because it's important to show the trending that takes place. Or you can say, last month we had a dip and we made some changes and now we can show an improvement. So always try to look at trends rather than a specific number on a specific month. And if you can figure out what kind of changes are made over a trend period of time, you're going to have a more successful dealership. Also, when it comes to your vendors, don't be afraid to ask them for help, and try to treat your vendors just like you would treat your staff members, okay? They're partners in you, okay? You'll get much better results if they feel a part of you. And you can ask anybody at Dealeron the same thing. They'll all tell you the same thing. If you need some assistance and need some help, you're having some issues, talk to them. They'll work with you. They are all about making you successful. Now, I've gone through this pretty quick, but this is one that is where I always made a lot of money in sales and service. Everybody wouldn't work with a customer for a long period of time, and they drop off the customers and say, okay, this is a bad lead or a dead lead. They're not going to buy a car. They're not going to be in the market for 90 days or a year or 2 years or whatever. The smart people only take a customer out of their CRM and eliminate them from the process unless they opt out or they buy a car. That's the only time. And even when they buy a car, they should still be in your process, because obviously now you want to get them the service and you want to follow that customer. You can ask the top salespeople in the country, and they'll all tell you that they follow up on their customers all the time and that they never drop a new car lead. Or you can ask the top service writers. They'll never drop a customer. They'll always work on them. Even if a customer buys a car somewhere else, does not mean that you can't service their car at your dealership. Okay? So there's no reason why we have to go to the Jiffy Lubes or the any of those vast different companies to do oil changes.
Those people who steal money from our dealerships? Yeah, those people.
Those people, okay? It always makes sense to try to keep in touch with the customers, okay? Unless they tell you, we don't want to talk to you. And always give them the option. Always give them that option that you can get out of there. Now, I've gone through it real quick, and I want to summarize. And I don't put words up here because I think the graphics are something that say more than the words. The first one is theology. You really need to plot out and figure out what you're going to do and have everyone on the same plan. You can't get off of it. You have to believe in it totally. The next is trust. You got to have the trust, because you take that one card out on the bottom and the whole pile falls. The top. You got to have that top. You know, they're the judge, right? They're the one who puts the hammer down. They're the ones that sign the check. You got to get their buy-in without question. Without their buy-in, nothing's going to happen. And you got to play a musical instrument. You got to have everybody on the same script, be able to sing the same songs. If they're not, the song's not going to be very pleasant, and you're not going to have many people coming in and watching you in the concert. Transparency. You have to have transparency. In today's world, the digital world, you might think that you're hiding something, or you're kind of not telling the whole story and they'll never find out. I have news for you. In today's world, in the digital world, and it's increasing. You know, it's not, everyone thinks it's as big as it's going to get. The silos of information are starting to open up, and it's going to become more and more transparent to everybody. So you have to be transparent to both your staff and your customers. You got to have great tactics. You got to know when to move that knight and when to move the pawns, right? Because the pawn can checkmate the king, right? So you have to have your good tactics put together. Team. You have to have a team approach if you want to be the top. And I don't think anyone that's on this webinar doesn't want to be the top. You've taken the time to learn some more, so I know you want a team approach. Coaching and training. You got to have constant coaching and training. Without it, you're going to fall behind. In today's digital world, things are moving fast. Your CRM system, your DMS system, all your vendors are changing. You won't see a time when it stops. It's going to be constant. It's not going to be static anymore. Money. You got to make sure that everyone feels the gold on all sides, okay? And transfer. When you transfer from one party to another, don't think of it as just one-to-one. Think of it as one-to-many. You need that information flowing. And your tactics. Your tactics, you have to know on the day-to-day time frame who's going to handle what tasks are going to be done by who, and if they're not done, you have to follow up and you have to do it yourself. Timing. You know, time is money, and today our most precious asset is definitely time. And so be aware of that. Time everything right. Everyone knows, I'm sure by now, that when to send out your emails. You don't send it out on a Monday. You send it out right after lunch on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. You don't send them out on a Friday or Saturday, and unless you're going to have some special announcements. Tracking, you have to track. Figure out what metrics you have. You have to track them. Remember both sales and service, so you do them. And have that in the pocket of your hand. I recently heard Jerry Petrello, who's the Vice President for Sales for Dealeron, talk about this. And he worked for a company that told him the elevator pitch. And so have your elevator pitch ready at all times, okay? And, you know, look at the trends, okay? Don't look at just a 30-day period of time. Look at a longer period of time. The longer the period of time you can do your trend analysis, the more successful you're going to be. And there you see kind of two different flow charts. And believe me, it's not by coincidence I put two different flow charts up on that little graphic, because you can look at it different ways. People learn different ways. And finally, termination. I believe the only time you terminate a prospect or a customer is if they've opted out. And even then, you have to offer some opportunities that your dealership might have. And with that,
Ray.
I'm right to you.
Ray, thank you so much. That was really great. And I have to say, the number of slides scared me a little bit, but man, you went through that so eloquently and so quickly. And before we get to questions from the audience, I just want to say to the audience, I had mentioned it at the very, very beginning. So maybe you heard me, maybe you didn't, but at the very beginning of the webinar today, I told everyone that rayfenster.com is giving away a great prize today to one lucky attendee. And so what is it? They're giving away their mystery shopping services for both sales and service. And this thing is valued at $1,500. And that includes a professional mystery shop of your dealership and evaluation of your emails and voicemails. And then Ray Fenster will give you full access to the results so you can gain awareness and implement some changes based on those experiences. Now, of course, you have to be here to win, so everyone here is eligible to win. And all you have to do is answer a simple question, be the first one to write in the correct answer, and you're the winner. Simple as that. So now's the time, people. Get in front of your keyboards. Let's get ready. We're going to get ready. Here comes the question. I always get a little nervous right before we do this. I don't know why. I give away stuff every week and every time right before. I get a little nervous. I get excited for people. So are you in front of your computers? Because here we go. Get in front of your keyboards. First person to write in the correct response wins. Good luck, everyone. Ray, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Question is, during today's presentation, how many T's did we cross? I know, it was a lot. It was over and over. It was all T's. I was really surprised you came up with that many T's, actually, Ray. So, does anyone have the, I don't have a correct answer yet. Oh, we have a winner! Woohoo! I want you to know, someone wrote in 1 million? No, Dave, it wasn't 1 million. But we do have a winner, and I'm so excited because I actually remember meeting this gentleman at the Digital Dealer Convention in Las Vegas, and I was the one who convinced him to come and try out one of our webinars. So Ahin Lee, congratulations, you are the winner. The correct answer was 15. Ahin, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for playing. He already wrote in and said, woohoo. Ahin, write to us and let us know what dealership you're with so we can, of course, congratulate you the proper way. And Ray, I'll get you Ahin's information so that you can set up that home mystery shop for him. And congratulations, that was a $1,500 prize. That's really great. So while Ahin is sending us his information, I want to get to some of these questions that came in. Of course, we'll start with Reed. And the question is, that's a really good question too. So how do I get the salespeople to turn the leads over to the service department? Well, I think everyone on here would like to know that. How do you get the salespeople to turn the leads over to the service department, Ray?
That's a toughie because they really covet their leads. Well, the reason, the way you can do it, literally, is if management has buy-in that the process is going to be an all-hands-on-line, and that you're going to work the sales leads all the way through to the fixed ops department, and vice versa, by the way. Vice versa. I mean, in other words, a service lead can be a sales lead too. You have to remember that 75 to 85% of the people that you turn over to that service department are going to be buying a car. And if you're the one to talk to them first and develop the relationship with them, well, who do you think they're going to buy the car from? They're going to buy the car from you. So you keep in touch with them just as well as it's over the service department. So the answer really is understanding that you're not giving away a lead, but actually you're actually coming back and you're getting a better lead once the customer's in the service department.
So you have to convince them. Just making sure. Okay. Next question comes to us from Allison. She says, do you think the service department should have its own website? We're thinking of doing it.
Absolutely, without question. I've always talked about this since Digital Dealer 1. You know, on our regular websites, we devote what? Maybe 5, maybe 10% of the real estate on the website to the service department. Really, when the service department is providing over 51% of the profit to the dealership, it makes sense to give maybe you give 5 to 10% to the sales department on the service website. I mean, you really do need to have a service website. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, DealerOn right now is the #1 provider of service websites in the country. Is that right?
Yeah, we do some really, I mean, we already have the best SEO and we already have great conversion. So yeah, we are doing a lot of service sites for some people out there, and they are gangbusters, just cleaning up. So if you're interested, hey, check us out at dealeron.com. And we already had a few attendees write in, like Bob and Mike. They wrote in and said, great idea. So, hey, if you're interested, yeah, it is a great idea. And you believe me, your service department will definitely benefit. Okay, Allison, good luck with that new service site. I think it's a great idea, and we wish you the best of luck. Okay, next question comes to us from Mike. He asks, do you like online service schedulers?
If you have a good online service provider and you are in good cooperation with them, that can work very well. Personally, every dealership I worked at and when I consult, I kind of prefer having the dealership themselves handle it, but they have to be trained and you have to handle the lead, the inquiry and the scheduling appropriately. So most people have those automated systems now because customers want to put in their requests at all hours of the day and night. And so I would suggest something like a hybrid type of system where during your normal service hours you have a live person talking to them. You know, it's the perfect time to do an upsell when you're scheduling a service appointment. So, and then when you're not on having one of those schedulers, cannot hurt when you're not open.
Yeah, I will say the dealership that I bought my last car from, they had an online service schedule. I loved it. I thought it was so easy to make an appointment. So from a consumer's point of view, I thought it was great. So it worked for me. Okay, I have 2 questions that are kind of similar, so I'm going to give them to you both. All right?
Okay.
First one comes from Joanne, and she says, how long should a lead be worked before sending it over to the service department? And Vince says, what sign should I look for to tell it's time to send the lead over to service? So Joanne, Vince, and I'm sure other people on here want to know, so how do you know when it's time to send it over to service?
When a lead first comes in, a sales lead first comes in, the autoresponder goes out, the consultant then makes contact either by email, by phone, preferably by phone, by the way, but makes contact. At that time, within a day or two, there's nothing that says it, in fact, everything that indicates you should, around 2 to 3 days after a lead comes in, send a welcome or some information from your service department. Make an offer for the customer. As soon as you find out for sure if the customer has a vehicle they're going to trade, or if you can identify what kind of vehicle they have that they're going to keep, at that point in time, immediately turn it over to the service department and just have them send a welcome to them. So I don't think there's no time that's too early. I wouldn't send it the first day a lead comes in, but anything after 2 days, and I wouldn't wait for a week. So somewhere between 2 to 5 days would be the optimal to introduce your service department. And by the way, you can have a welcome information go from your parts department too. And if you have a collision center, you can have a welcome come from your collision department and offering them a coupon or some special whatever if they come in.
Wow. Okay, I'm surprised. A week, huh? No more than a week. Well,
No
there
more
you
than a
go.
week.
Okay, and Joanne, Vince, if you have any follow-up on that, please let me know. Nick's question's kind of similar. He says, what is the process once we get the buy-in from all parties to 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 the service department?
The TO to the service department should be automatic within that 2 to 5 day period, or 2 days to 7 days. I guess I wouldn't go past 7 days. It should be automatic, and it's the process that really depends on your service department, how fluid they are in terms of working with a lead, how adept. You're looking for a champion in the service department to be the champion to handle this too initially. But the TO is the same as turning over sending that template and having the service department call them. If you have an appointment scheduled, call them and call and say, hey, how you doing? We just want you to know that we are available, our hours are. It could happen anywhere between 2 to 5 days, because I don't like to wait a week, but 2 to 5 days should be to turn it over.
Huh. Okay, so here's my question, because now granted, I've made no bones about this in the past. I've never worked in a dealership, but I've been in a lot of dealerships, and my experience is that the people in the service department are super busy, which is great, because if they're busy, that means they're making lots of money. Do you think that there should be somebody, like a marketing person or something, that's, helping the service department keep up with all of these leads? Because I imagine there's a number of leads that come into any dealership. It's hard enough for the salespeople to keep up with all those leads. I mean, who would you expect in the service department to take that on?
Well, the top dealerships in the country that handle the service leads have developed, some of them have developed their own call centers within the service department. Some have developed their own business development centers in the service department. Others have combined business development center with sales and service. Now, the best follow-up call when someone has a particular issue on a vehicle definitely should come from the service department. And I can tell you, knowing, we talk about absorption rates, but very, very few dealerships in the country have 100% absorption rate, which means they still have capacity. And so even though that service writer looks like he's busy when the cars are first coming in, usually they have plenty of time once the initial rush of vehicles have come in the morning to make the phone calls and to send out emails and whatnot. So you'd be surprised. Probably the best, I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but probably some of the best salespeople that a dealership has are the service writers themselves. Because remember, those are the ones that deal with all the problems. They've got to convince someone they're going to spend money to fix the car that they just paid $30,000 or $40,000 for to fix. So those people will embrace this if they're approached properly. So you can do it many ways, just like you could do the front end, a sales department. Some have just anybody in the sales department doing it. I preach an all hands online philosophy, which has everybody dealing with the lead. So, but you can, depending on your structure of your organization, I wouldn't have a marketing person, but there's a lot of people that have someone that follows up with their leads to see if everything's been taken care of too. So it's really got to be up to the dealership. Did that answer the question?
Oh, yes, that's fantastic. I can't believe some of those top dealerships have somebody in their BDC taking care of that. That's very forward-thinking. Really, really amazing. Ray, thank you so much. I thought your webinar was fantastic and very insightful and had some really, really great ideas. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Well, thank you for allowing me, and thank everyone for attending.
Oh, it was great. And we're coming up to the top of the hour, so any questions that weren't answered during the time allotted are going to be answered by email later today. And I want to remind the audience that, of course, a link to download a copy of today's webinar recording is going to be emailed to you later today for your reference. Please feel free to share it with friends and colleagues. And the webinar is also going to be posted online within 24 hours. All you have to do is go to dealeron.com/webinars. And from there, you can view our upcoming webinar schedule or access any of our past webinars too. Also, at the conclusion of the webinar, please fill out that short survey you're going to get. We're always looking for great feedback from you, our valued audience. And today we're going to randomly select some winners from all the completed surveys to also win some prizes from Google. Now, Dealeron is going to be at the upcoming NADA convention in Orlando. So if you're going to be there, well, we want to see you. So come visit us at booth 3259. I hear the booth is going to be sweet, and I can't wait to see it. And I'm going to be there. And if you want a little break, come to Orlando, learn lots of stuff. We'd love to see you. It's February 8th to the 11th, and it is going to be awesome. I wish I had that nice, Sunday voice. I don't. But it's going to be awesome. Ray, do you have that voice?
No, I don't. But that's good. It'll be awesome.
It always is. And while you're there, please check out the speaking session from Jeff Clark. He's our Executive Vice President of Business Development here at Dealeron, and he wants to school you guys on digital strategies to double your fixed ops. And if you've never had the pleasure of hearing Jeff Clark speak, particularly on this subject, well, you're in for a treat. Please go search him out at one of those 3 times days locations. You're going to have a great time listening to him talk about that. And I hope to see you in Orlando. And invitations will be going out tomorrow for our next webinar, 7 ways to recruit, train, and retain top talent for your dealership. That's going to be with Craig Lockard. He's the president of Automax Recruiting and Training. Now, we all know hiring and training the right employees can make a huge difference in any organization. And the smartest dealers and managers out there know that their most valuable assets at the dealerships are in their personnel. But how do you find, recruit, and train and retain top automotive talent? Well, during this information-packed 1-hour webinar, Craig Lockard will take you through the 7 best practices that will make a huge difference to you and your business, so you can have a definite recipe for success. If you believe that the human capital is in your dealership, is your key to success, then you can't afford to miss this amazing webinar. And this will be another fabulous presentation by your friends at Dealeron. And don't forget, Dealeron's weekly webinars are held every Thursday, 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And we have some great webinar subjects planned for this year. But if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions regarding these webinars and our topics, feel free to contact me directly. My name is Eliana Raggio, and I love hearing from you. I'm on all the automotive social networks, so you can track me down online or email me at eliana@dealeron.com. Thank you all so very much for spending this time with us today, and I hope to see you all in a future webinar in our continuing education series. Have yourselves a good one.